Hi guys, it's Alex Bass here. Welcome to my channel. I did a review of the Nothing Phone 3a and the Nothing Phone 3a Pro, and I really wanted to see how they actually stack up side by side against each other. I've got the Nothing Phone 3a Pro in my right hand, and in my left hand I've got the Nothing Phone 3a. Now, they're both excellent mid-rangers really for the price that Nothing is asking of them. But is it worth it to go up for this one? It's £449 for 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. This is the only version available in the UK. And this one here is actually 8 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabytes of storage for £329. And the equivalent to this one would be 12 gigabytes, of course, and 256 gigabytes of storage for £379. Is this one that much better, really? Well, I want to do it side by side and see exactly how they actually compare to each other. Also, a quick note, Carl Pei, the CEO of Nothing, finally confirmed that the long-awaited Nothing Phone 3 will be released in the third quarter of this year, and the price will be about £800. I've left a link down in the description, so if you want to see it, he talks about, well, among other things, the Nothing Phone 3. He starts about, I think it was the 50th second of the video, if you want to check it out. Now, without any further ado, let's start the comparison between two of the bad boys of the market right now. Let's kick it off with the design and build. So we've got the Nothing Phone 3a on the left and the Nothing Phone 3a on the right hand side. Now, both on the back are made with glass, unspecified what version and what make, actually. We don't know if it's Corning Gorilla Glass, Shot Glass, Panda Glass, whatever. And then this one here is plastic. I know this one is plastic because it got scratched, and let's see if we're going to be able to notice it right here on the lens. And that's not how glass scratches. So this is plastic for sure. I believe this is metal. But anywho, on the side we've got the plastic frame, and it's got the volume rocker on the left hand side, of course, down and up, and on the right hand side we got the pointless essential key here, and then the power up button. On the front we have a screen protector on both of them, and they're covered by Panda Glass. That's we know for sure, because Nothing specified it. Now, they're both IP64 rating phones for IP64 rated phones for water and dust resistance. That would mean they're both completely dust proof, and also they can sustain water jets, well, low speed water jets on all sides, but still not submergible in water. And this one on the left hand side, the 3a, weighs about 201 grams, and this one here, 3a Pro, weighs about 213 grams. It's got an extra bigger camera, of course, and a bigger bump on the back. Definitely this one attracts more dust than this one, but they both are terrible for it, really. And overall, probably solidly built, but still be careful with them. That's what I'm going to say. Always have a case. Now, in terms of price points, of course, this is the 8 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabytes of storage, and this one here, the 3a Pro, is 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. So this one is £449 here in Britain. I believe in the US it's about $449. And this one here, the 12 gigabytes of RAM version, 256 gigabytes of storage, costs £379. The performance between the two cameras we'll see in the actual, side-by-side photos and video. But probably you're better off with this one to spend a little bit more and get it. Also worth mentioning that this one has got, this is the Nothing Phone 3a, does not have a eSIM support. It's got a dual SIM card, dual physical SIM card here on the port, and still got stereo speakers though, great. NFC, Wi-Fi calling, these ones are available too. This one here does have eSIM support. It's got a dual physical SIM card tray as well as the 3a. However, it's got a one slot for eSIM, and you can only use two SIMs at the same time. So you have to choose two physical SIM cards or one physical SIM card and one eSIM. Cannot take three at the same time, which is a bit of a bummer, but This eSIM is not that popular at the minute anyway, so it's just getting to the mainstream scene, so probably won't affect most people. Another thing important here to mention is also the fact that they both come without a charger. I know, but apparently no phone comes with a charger anymore in Europe and in the UK. Happy days. Now a quick mention, of course, this is again Nothing 3A and Nothing 3A Pro. They both have stereo speakers on this one, as you can see them, and this is great. They're both good, don't get me wrong. They get loud and also clear. This one does not have a lot of bass on the 3A, however. This one's got a more prominent bass on the 3A Pro, and it gets a little bit louder as well. So yeah, the 3A Pro, the more expensive one, as expected, and completely logically, has got better stereo speakers than the 3A. But the 3A nonetheless has very good speakers for its mid-range class, and again starts £329. So yeah, I would think for podcasts, for watching videos, this is pretty good. And if you're into more of watching movies and explosions and anything else, and you don't want to plug in your earbuds or headphones, you just want to watch it on your phone, this one is the better choice. Now, I turn it around. In terms of screen, they both get good screens actually. And again, 3A and 3A Pro on the right here. So basically, the identical screens. They get bright, probably almost identically, and they're pretty legible outside in a sunny day. They do have a 120 Hz refresh rate and 3 refresh rate modes. It's going to be the basic one, 60 Hz, and the dynamic one, which pretty much going to switch between 90 and 120 Hz. And then it's going to be the high refresh rate at 120 Hz. And they're both AMOLED screens. They're not LCD, so that's great. And they're both certified with HDR10+, high dynamic range 10+ version, which is great. No Dolby Vision, unfortunately, but still, at this price point, it's completely normal. And not that particularly sharp at 387 pixels per inch, but still, they're pretty good screens in this mid-range bracket, really. Now, we did the individual reviews. We did the thingy, so you basically got only 2 options for the colors. So you either get the Alive, which is a more of a vivid, saturated colors, and then you got the Standard, which is pretty much natural one. I'm not sure how much they hit the target, really, to be honest with you, but this is what it is, and you can also adjust the color temperature from the coolest to the warmest if you want to. And the refresh rate, we spoke about it here, and also there we go. So this is the dynamic one, is pretty much 90 to 120 Hz. This is the high one, which I use all the time because it is the smoothest and the best one, really. And the standard one just locks it to 60 Hz. There's nothing exciting here. And being a AMOLED screen, it gets perfect blacks. So, I got the wrong one. Sorry. There we go. So we got perfect deep blacks. We don't get, dark gray colors or anything. And the colors look much better compared to an LCD screen. So it's fantastic. And also, take note, Google, Samsung, and Apple, thin bezels. They look much better than on the iPhone 16e, Samsung A55, or the, what was the last one? Google Pixel 9a. It was hideous, really. Now, when we speak about screens, you have to always remember they both are with Panda Glass. So it's not Corning Gorilla Glass, which is the most, toughest one. And it's not 7i or any version like it, or Gorilla Glass Victus Plus. So it's still, I believe, it's sturdy, but they both get a screen protector by Nothing on top of it. So that does help. Now, in terms of software, they're both on the Nothing OS. It's very clean software actually, and there's no, I think actually, yeah, it's updated, so you don't get a lot of bloatware apps. And I've downloaded, of course, a few, as you can see here, Geekbench, 3D Mark, and also CapCut or Asphalt Legends, Call of Duty, PUBG. They were all on this phone as well, but I deleted them. Apple TV. These are the ones I downloaded. So you get very clean overall lookout and pretty much no bloatware, if you don't count the Fitbit app, of course, which is a bit annoying, but still is there. And also the ever-growing list of Google apps here, Google Meet, Google TV, and all this crap. You can probably uninstall some of it, which is good. But all in all, it's a very snappy, very smooth type of software. And both of them get guaranteed 3 years of software updates and 6 years of security patches, which is decent, pretty decent for a mid-ranger. For nothing promises that, so hopefully they're going to stick to their promise, really. And also another thing about the software is that it's not that customizable, but you still get some good stuff in it, and they keep bragging about the AI tasks and blah 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 blah, but it is what it is, really. The glyph interface is the highlight probably of the Nothing phone. You can customize it here in the settings, and on the back it's just, starts lighting up and also gives you that thing, but you need to keep the screen on the, upside down, and it's a bit idiotic, really. How many of us actually do that one? It's always the other way around. The screen is, on the top so we can see it. But yeah, you can customize when you get a reception, and on the back of it, it's going to start, bleeping on this side here and on this side here on the top around the camera bump. So yeah, that's funky and a trademark of Nothing. I don't particularly appreciate it, really, but that's just me. You might like it. And another thing that it is here, interesting, or maybe not so interesting actually, is the special features. They used to have the Tesla thing on the previous one, I believe. It was a experimental one. Here in the experimental features, you do get a AirPods support, and also the glyph progress, which is basically the glyph interface, really. And a thing that I don't really understand, dot matrix title. I'm not going to go into it. Anywho, and this one here, the game mode, this is not part of the experimental features. It's actually part of the other ones. If you click on it, it's actually just going to help you with the gaming. And we're going to talk about the gaming a little bit afterwards. This one here is actually the RAM booster. This one is 8 gigabytes of RAM. This is 12 gigabytes of RAM, but you can both expand it up to 8 gigabytes of virtual RAM. So basically it's going to take some of your storage if you ever run out of RAM, which is unlikely, but still, if you ever run out of it, take out of the storage is going to help you with the speed and the efficiency of the phone and the performance. If you don't want it, just put it on off and then restart the phone, and it's going to be just, the basic 8 gigabytes or 12 gigabytes, whatever your version is. And on this one is 12 gigabytes here in Blighty. Yeah, the game mode, again, popping up here, you can see it. This one is it's pretty standard, like on all phones, and it's going to help you with the not to be disturbed when you're gaming, and also try to improve the performance of it. But we're going to speak about the performance later on with the chipset and so on, which is not exactly great, really, when it comes to gaming. But it is a mid-ranger, like all mid-rangers. It's lacking in that regard. In terms of all the other ones, passwords, passkeys, and so on, you do get that one. And also, where was that thing? The fingerprint sensor, the facial unlock, and the password or PIN, whatever you prefer, really. And that's it. They both get a Bluetooth 5.3 version and Wi-Fi 6. So it's not Wi-Fi 7 or Bluetooth 5.4, but then again on a mid-ranger they rarely put those in. Both have 5,000 milliamp hour batteries, which is okay. And then again, this helps with the adaptive batteries, helps with the redistribution of power. And you can check the battery health on both of them. However, not exactly checking in the way I wanted to. Charging mode, you can put them, to 70 or 90%. It's usually 80% here. I don't know why they put it like this, but it is their thingy. And in the battery information here, this is pretty baffling because this phone has already been charged several times. It says cycle count 0, maximum capacity 100%. Great for the maximum capacity, but still, why is it 0? That should be several counts already. Anyway, on this one says maximum capacity 100%. It's actually 2 counts down. Cycle counts is actually more than 2 as well, so it's not very reliable, that thing, I think, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Both are set to charge at 50 watts and both charge from 0 to 100% at about an hour and 6 minutes, 7 minutes, something like that. I did it in the review, so it is like it's almost identical. And the battery life is also identical, really, in terms of web browsing, calling, and also gaming and watching videos. Another thing with the software, which is pretty stupid to me, but I did it in the individual reviews of this phone, so you can check them, is the essential key here. It does very little for me. It's underneath the power button. And it's saved here into the essential space. And you join that program if you want to. I always do it maybe later. And it is like, you're going to save any photos or any recordings you do with it. It's just stupid for me, so I'm not going to skip on it. Now, let's move on to the performance section. In terms of performance, nothing has been bragging about the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3. That's in these two phones. And it's from Qualcomm, and they used the Qualcomm's rival last time. There was MediaTek Dimensity 7350 Pro on the Nothing Phone 2A and 2A Plus. And they've been bragging how this phone is like 11% faster in GPU, 33% or whatever it was faster in CPU, and 92% faster in AI task. Wow, I'm so impressed. Can you be any more vague? Nothing? 92% faster in AI tasks? It's all smoke and mirrors, isn't it? Just all hype and no substance. Now, in terms of benchmarks, of course, it's not that impressive. It's bang average. They saved a little bit of money, so it was basically, we're going to talk about the camera afterwards, but they saved a little bit of money there to balance it with the telephoto lenses that they added on these versions here in 3A on this side and 3A Pro on the right hand side. But they also saved money with the chipset, and it's a very minuscule improvement in performance. Everything feels smooth, everything is nice, don't get me wrong. It's going to be for the average person, for the regular folks of us that are not demanding, it's going to be absolutely fine, and you won't notice anything. However, if you do gaming or you look for, lagging here and there, you're going to notice some of it for sure. And in terms of performance, let's see that one here. I did the benchmark, so we're going to go with the, this is the 3A. There we go. And this is the 3A Pro. So you can see they're very identical in terms of results. So almost the same, really. 1167, single core, 1170 is the same thing. And then it's 3269, 3280. Pretty average for the class. Now in GPU, we did the first one, the Vulkan one. The OpenCL one. The OpenCL is again identical, really, in terms of this one. And in the Vulkan one is almost identical. This one's a little bit faster, by the way. It's really funny. Anywho, but when we go to the AI ones, it's pretty baffling because this is I did experimentally Geekbench AI for CPU scores, and they are pretty underwhelming, as you can see. And there's a big difference because the cheaper one, 3A, shows better scores than the 3A Pro, which is the more expensive one, which is pretty baffling. But things don't end there. Let's move these ones a bit aside. And let's do this one. I'm going to put this one here. This one here, as you can see, is already dusty, is the Nothing Phone 2A Plus. Now let me open it. And look at this one. This is the AI scores of the 2A Plus. Higher than both of them. Actually, significantly higher. We're talking about the CPU specifically. I did run it in the NPU as well, and this one showed better results than both the 3A and the 3A Pro. This is just ridiculous. It's baffling. In terms of the other one, there's the improvement here. This is the one. So let me go back to these ones. 3A, 3A Pro, and 2A Plus, right? So we go to the Geekbench to check the CPU on both phones. There we go. And this is it. So there is an improvement, as you can see, in the multi-core one. In the single-core one, it's pretty much the same, 1159. And it's the multi-core one that's been improved significantly. The problem is we mostly use the single-core one. Not that much the multitasking one. And then let's go to the other one, which is the GPU. Let's go with the OpenCL first score. Again, to remind ourselves what it was. And there we go. Check this out. This one is actually better than the 3A Pro and the 3A and the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. The older one is better. You go figure. I cannot. Then we go in the other one, which is the Vulkan one. And here, finally, we see some improvement here. So this is the smaller score of almost 3,800 points. And this is 4,506 and 4,460. So it is a bit baffling in terms of performance. And I believe that nothing has been just fiddling around and taking us for granted, really. But they did the cutting here in the chipset to obviously save money. And which is a bit disappointing, really. Now moving on in terms of the 3D mark. And there we go. So we've got the, again, this is the 3A Pro and this is the 3A. On the left hand side is 3A and on the right hand side is 3A Pro, right? So we do the scores and you can see identical, really. There we go. Put them to the camera. Identical scores in terms of this one. Excellent stability, absolutely excellent, outstanding stability here. So you put it under stress and the phone gets barely any hot or any warm. And it's very, very good. The other one, of course, we did the other one, the live stress test, also pretty good. And it's not too bad at all. So mid-range gaming is absolutely fine, and also multitasking is fine. So in terms of putting it under stress, the phones work pretty well. There are no complaints there. In terms of gaming, I tried on both phones, and it got some. I put my favorite Asphalt Legends, of course. I could not get it above 60 Hz as I expected. Call of Duty also did not go above 60 Hz. Only PUBG went to a interesting 90 Hz. It could not go all the way to 120 Hz to do high frame rate gaming. But still, I would take 90 Hz over 60 Hz at any day, of course. On both phones, it's like that. So basically, you do get arbitrary refresh rates on some games. I only tried these three, so we don't have that much time anyway. So I tried these three, and it was a little bit of a hiccup there, here and there, but it's a mid-range performer, so always have that in mind. It's not upper mid-range, it's not a flagship killer, it's not a flagship, so I have to lower our expectations. I believe for everyday use, it's adequate though, and light gaming can also do okay. Last but not least, let's take a look at the cameras. Well, let's put them like this way again. Oh, there we go. So we got the Nothing 3A with a triple set of cameras, just like the Nothing 3A Pro triple set. However, there's a bit of a difference. Of course, the main snapper, I believe, is the same. It's a 50 megapixel Samsung snapper. They don't even specify what model on the 2A Plus. I believe it was GN9. But anywho, we don't know that one. They have downgraded the ultra wide to 8 megapixel one, and it's a Sony sensor, and I'm 95% sure it's Sony IMX355 sensor. It's an old one. It's just ridiculous, but they saved money there. And they probably can do good pictures if you don't beat too much into them, so don't zoom in, just take the picture and that's it. It does only 1080p at 30 frames per second as well. The telephoto lens on this one is 2 times optical zoom and 4 times digital zoom. So basically that's where it comes with the video as well. It's a bit confusing for some folks as well as it was me. Afterwards I'll explain why in the video section really. So basically this one is a 2 times the 50 megapixel Samsung lens. I'm not sure if actually Samsung didn't specify what it was, to be honest with you. And it is 1080p and 30 frames per second on the 3A. And it crops it from the main camera, which is again 50 megapixel Samsung sensor, and it goes up to 4 times zoom. So basically this one is the, from the telephoto, is the 2 times integrity image. So it shows up as the higher quality one and better depth and everything is better. While this one is a software processing and just crops it and makes it 4 times. So it's all about the software, while this one is the hardware. And this one here on the Nothing Phone 3A, again, the main snapper, as I said, is probably identical to the 3A. I'm not sure. 50 megapixel Samsung sensor, that's all I know. 8 megapixel Sony sensor, again, is probably the same as the 3A. Most likely Sony IMX355. And then we've got the periscope lens. That's a different one, the telephoto periscope lens here. So this one is 3 times optical zoom and 6 times digital zoom. So basically, again, the same process. It goes for this one 3 times zoom you get from the actual lens. So this is the integrity of the image is intact, and it's the hardware that does the job mostly, and it's a little software in it, of course, but mostly is the hardware. The 6 times digital zoom is cropped again from the main camera, and this is all about processing, and it's not going to be that high of a quality, just like on the 3A and other phones, but it still can give you longer zoom, longer distance shot, and you know, it could be with compromised detail, but still it could do the job in certain situations. And this is all basically about the setup. Now, right, so we're now in the camera. There we go. I got the 3A and the 3A Pro. Right, so going to the camera department. So it is pretty straightforward, isn't it? So we got the ultra wide at 0.6, which is Sony IMX 8 megapixel one, basic one. We've got the main camera at 1, which is a 50 megapixel on both of them. We've got the 2 times zoom, which on this one and on this one is both optical. Yay! And then on this one, you do the 4 times digital zoom, and this one goes 3 times optical zoom, and 6 times you go to the maximum digital zoom. You can go further up, but I wouldn't suggest you do that one for more than 6 times. You can, you know, enlarge it even further, but, you know, there you go. All software processing, just cropping it from the main camera. I wouldn't suggest you do it. I'll go back to it. Now, this is all straightforward. And also when you do the, there we go, selfie cameras, the 3A's got a 32 megapixel sensor, and it's actually doing only 1080p full HD video at 60 frames per second. The 3A Pro, on the other hand here, it's actually a 50 megapixel Samsung sensor against the 32 megapixel Samsung sensor on the 3A. And this one does 4K at 30 frames per second video. It's a bit confusing with the video, however. There we go, the video here. And you can choose between 1080p and 30 frames per second. On this one, you can do 1080p 30 frames per second, 1080p 60 frames per second, and 4K at 30 frames per second. Yay! Now, when you turn it around is the big thingy here. I've put them both on 4K 30 frames per second, as you can see here. There we go. Yeah. And the thing is, this one here is 1 time regular one that does the video from the hardware, but when you put it on the zoom, it tricks you into thinking that this is from the telephoto lens when it's actually cropping it from the main camera, and this is pretty annoying to me. And the telephoto lens actually can do only 1080p at 30 frames per second. So this is from, again, video from both the main, both images are from the main camera, from the main snapper. Tricks you into thinking it's the telephoto. Annoying. You go here in the 1080p and 30 frames per second specifically, and then you can do and switch between all cameras, well, almost simultaneously. Difficult word to pronounce. So you go like this. This is the ultra wide at 0.6 times. Then you go to 1 times, which is the main camera, and then this is definitely the telephoto lens at 2 times and 3 times the zoom. Now this is, straightforward. But if you wanted to do it a bit better on the 1080p at 60 frames per second, and again the same thing as at 4K, main camera goes like this. And this is great for its main camera to be used. But then when you go to this one, it's cropping it from the main camera. It's not the telephoto lens. This is really baffling and confusing and very, very annoying. Anywho, and again, probably most people won't be that annoyed as much as me. But then again, it is something that nothing has definitely misled us on. Now, let's start with the photos, and then we're going to see if we can do the comparison between the video. Unsurprisingly, the selfies on the 3A Pro are a little bit better than the ones on the 3A. Of course, the colors are a little bit warmer and more accurate. There's more detail in the selfie, and also the high dynamic range is a little bit better. In portrait mode, both phones do excellent jobs in the separation of the subject. The shots from the main camera on the 3A Pro, of course, are better than the ones on the 3A. The colors are more accurate, the high dynamic range is a little bit better, and the contrast is also better. However, I like the ones on the 3A, even though they're a little bit over-processed and over-sharpened compared to the more expensive sibling of 3A Pro. In terms of ultra-wide shots, well, the 3A Pro has a very slightly better high dynamic range compared to the 3A, and that's it. Everything else is the same. So pretty much a draw here for me. The 2 times optical zoom shots from the 3A compared to the 2 times optical zoom shots from the 3A Pro are a little bit less detailed. The colors are a bit washed out and there's more noise and over-processing in them. They're still pretty good for the asking price of it. But still, yeah, the ones on the 3A Pro are better. Still a small difference between the two in terms of 2 times optical zoom. However, at 4 times digital zoom for the 3A and 6 times digital zoom for the 3A Pro, the difference is pretty significant. Both phones produce excellent night selfies, as I discussed in the reviews, and I've always impressed with both of them very much. Again, a little bit warmer colors and more accurate on the 3A Pro, but apart from that, both phones deliver the goodies here. And of course, the separation of the subject in portrait mode is great in both phones. In terms of night performance, well, the 3A delivered good results overall, but the 3A Pro obviously is better in terms of colors again, and also less processing, and detail is better too. The high dynamic range is also overall better. If you compare them side by side, you're going to see slight difference between the two. However, I would not actually have that much criticism towards the 3A. It delivers the goodies, and the 3A Pro does even a little bit better job. The 3A Pro stands out with better exposure. That's the biggest difference between the two cameras at night. The 3A Pro handles the highlights and the shadows much better in all 3 lenses, the main, the ultra wide, and the zooming shots. And even the darker shots in the digital zooms are still better with more detail and brighter. Now let's move on to the day video. A quick reminder that you can only shoot the telephoto video from the 1080p 30 frames per second mode, and that will deliver you better results than the cropped digitally zoom from the main camera. Yeah, let's start with the 1080p 60 frames per second on the Nothing Phone 3A, and then of course 1080 60 frames per second on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. And now for the unfair comparison, the 4K 30 frames per second on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro and the maximum 1080p 60 frames per second on the Nothing Phone 3A. Ultra wide, the maximum 1080p 30 frames per second on the Nothing 3A Pro, and ultra wide 1080p 30 frames per second on the Nothing 3A phone. It's 4K 30 frames per second on the Nothing 3A and 4K 30 frames per second on the 3A Pro. As you can see, the video on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro is much better than the one on the 3A. That was a bit disappointing on the 3A, but again, given the price, you probably can't forgive it. Surprisingly, however, on the ultra-wide night video, the 3A actually has the slight upper hand. The detail is a little bit better and the exposure is a little bit better too. 4K 30 frames per second from the main cam. In terms of digital zoom shots, the results are decent without being spectacular. Again, of course, the 3A Pro is slightly better, but the results on the 3A are still quite good for its price. Well, there you have it, folks. The Nothing Phone 3A versus the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. They are both excellent value devices in a highly congested and very competitive mid-range market. The 3A Pro probably should have gotten definitely should have gotten a better chipset. And the 7S Gen 3, it's just bang average. But still, it was a cost-cutting measure by Nothing. And we can probably forgive it that they put it into the 3A. Again, at this price point for both phones, £449, $450 in the US, in Europe probably about 450 euros. And this one, £329 starting price. Well, getting a telephoto lens on both of them is fantastic, really, and exceptional. Is that good enough for you? Well, at the end of the day, you decide. Thanks very much for watching and see you next time. Ciao.